So, who would be using a sword? In medieval warfare, swords were not the most common weapon, contrary to what popular media like Hollywood would imply. A sword is an expensive weapon. It takes a lot of metal to make a sword, and by contrast, it takes a lot less metal to make a spear or something of the sort. A sword is expensive, so it's a status symbol more than anything. And the only case in battle where you would be using a sword is if you lost your main weapon. In medieval warfare, you'd mostly be using spears or bows and arrows. But for example, if you were an archer and you lost your bow and your bow was broken, or you ran out of arrows, or in a more likely scenario, someone got too close, you'd switch to sword and strike. If you were a spearman and your spear broke, then you'd be using a sword. However, there are much better alternatives to swords. Poleaxes were a bit of every traditional melee weapon, but those weren't developed until later in the centuries. So, if you were a poor peasant, you wouldn't be using a sword. You'd be using a spear, maybe a pitchfork, farming tools, maybe. Militaries in the medieval era didn't really have standard issue equipment. You'd bring your own equipment, and that was more cost effective. There's only one group that I know of that swords were common practice, were standard issue, and that was the Roman Legion. Specifically the Roman legionaries, not the auxiliaries. If you were a Roman legionary, you'd be equipped with a gladius, javelins, and a shield, traditionally. And you were trained in all of them. Because Rome was rich. Rome had a lot of money to spend. That's why their soldiers were some of the best in history. Anyways, that's my rant.